The dust from the stagecoach had barely settled when Charlotte Hayes stepped onto the wooden boardwalk of Silver Creek, Arizona territory in the scorching summer of 1878. Her traveling dress stained with 2 weeks of desert grime, and her heart heavy with the weight of starting over after burying her father back in St. Louis. She gripped her carpetbag tighter, feeling the last of her savings sewn into the lining, and made her way toward the only hotel in town, a 2-story structure with peeling paint that proclaimed itself the Silver Creek Grand Hotel in letters that had probably been grand 20 years ago. The lobby smelled of tobacco and old wood, and the clerk behind the desk looked up from his ledger with eyes that assessed her in a single sweep. He was a thin man with a mustache waxed into sharp points, and his expression shifted from professional courtesy to something harder when he noticed she carried her own bag. "I need a room for the night," Charlotte said, setting her carpetbag down and reaching for her coin purse. "Just 1 night, possibly 2, while I arrange transportation to Tucson." The clerk's fingers drummed on the counter. "You traveling with family, miss?" "No, I am traveling alone." Charlotte lifted her chin, refusing to show the exhaustion that made her bones ache. "Is that a problem?" "Afraid so." He closed the ledger with a decisive thump. "Hotel policy. We do not accommodate unaccompanied women. Brings the wrong element, if you understand my meaning." Charlotte felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the Arizona sun. "I am a respectable woman. My father just passed and I am traveling to my aunt in Tucson. I simply need a clean bed and a hot meal. Policy is policy." The clerk turned away, clearly considering the matter closed. "Try the boarding house on the edge of town. They might take you." "The boarding house burned down 3 months ago." The voice came from behind Charlotte, deep and measured, with a hint of gravel that spoke of dust and long days under the sun. "You know that as well as I do, Herbert." Charlotte turned to find a man standing in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun, so that for a moment he seemed like a figure cut from shadow. Then he stepped forward, and she could see him properly. He was tall, broad-shouldered in the way of men who worked with their hands, wearing dusty denims and a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hat was pulled low, but she could make out a strong jaw covered with a few days of stubble, and eyes that were a surprising clear blue in his sun-weathered face. He looked to be in his late 20s, perhaps 30 at most, and there was something solid about him, something steady. "Evening, Cole," the clerk said, his tone shifting to something more conciliatory. "Just following the rules." "The rules that you bend every time somebody slips you an extra $1? The man called Cole moved to stand beside Charlotte, close enough that she could smell leather and sage. "She's with me now. Give her a room." The clerk's eyes widened. "She's with you?" "That's what I said." Cole pulled out a coin and set it on the counter with a solid clink. "Best room you have available, and I want your word that she will be treated with respect, or we will have a conversation you will not enjoy." Herbert swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Cole and Charlotte. Whatever he saw in Cole's steady gaze made him reach for the guest book. Of course, no disrespect intended. Room 7, top of the stairs. It has a nice view of the street." Charlotte found her voice. "I can pay for my own room." Cole glanced at her, and she caught the hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Did not say you could not, but Herbert here responds better to certain kinds of persuasion." He touched the brim of his hat to her. "Cole Brennan, ma'am. Welcome to Silver Creek." "Charlotte Hayes." She studied him, this stranger who had stepped in without hesitation. "Thank you, Mr. Brennan, though I do not wish to impose on you or create any false impressions about my character." "No false impressions created." He picked up her carpetbag before she could protest. "Just a woman who needs a room and a clerk who needs reminding about common decency. I will walk you up. Make sure everything is suitable." Herbert pushed the key across the counter, and Charlotte took it, her fingers trembling slightly from exhaustion and relief, and something else she could not quite name. She followed Cole up the narrow staircase, watching the easy way he moved, the confident set of his shoulders. Room 7 was small but clean, with a brass bed covered in a faded quilt, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a single window that looked out over Silver Creek's main street. Cole set her bag down by the bed and turned to face her, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you again," Charlotte said. "I did not expect such kindness from a stranger. My mother raised me to believe that kindness is not really kindness if you only extend it to people you know." He studied her face, and she found herself unable to look away from those blue eyes. "You look about ready to drop. When is the last time you had a decent meal?" Charlotte tried to remember. "Yesterday morning, I think." The stage stops were not particularly accommodating either. Cole frowned. "Restaurant across the street serves a good steak. Why do not you get cleaned up and I will wait downstairs? You should not have to go hungry on top of everything else." "Mr. Brennan, you have already done more than enough." "Maybe I am selfish." That almost smile appeared again. "Maybe I just want the company of someone who can probably hold a conversation about something other than cattle prices and card games." Charlotte found herself smiling back, the first real smile since her father's funeral. "In that case, I accept. Give me 20 minutes. He nodded and left, closing the door softly behind him. Charlotte sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly weak now that she was alone. She had been so focused on just getting through each day, each mile, that she had not let herself feel the fear and uncertainty that dogged her steps. And now this stranger, this cowboy with kind eyes and a quiet strength, had appeared exactly when she needed help most. She washed her face and hands in the basin, changed into her least wrinkled dress, a simple blue cotton that brought out her eyes, and pinned her dark hair into something resembling order. When she looked in the small mirror above the washstand, she saw a woman of 23 who had aged years in the past month, but there was color in her cheeks now and a spark of something that might have been hope. Cole was waiting in the lobby, leaning against the wall with his hat in his hands, talking quietly to an older man with a sheriff's badge. He looked up when she descended the stairs, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "Miss Hayes, this is Sheriff Tom Whitaker. He wanted to make sure you arrived safely." The sheriff tipped his hat. "Welcome to Silver Creek, ma'am. Cole here tells me you're heading to Tucson. I will make some inquiries about safe passage for you. The roads can be tricky this time of year." "Thank you, Sheriff. Everyone has been very kind." She glanced at Cole. "Well, almost everyone." Whitaker chuckled. "Herbert will come around. He forgets sometimes that this is 1878, not 1848. Women travel alone all the time now for all sorts of reasons." His expression softened. "Cole mentioned you lost your father. My condolences." "Thank you." Charlotte felt the familiar tightness in her chest but pushed it down. He was a good man. Cole offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Charlotte took it. They crossed the dusty street together as the sun began its descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The restaurant was called the Lucky Dollar, and it was crowded with men just off work. But Cole led her to a corner table that offered some privacy from the noise. A woman in her 40s with flour on her apron came to take their order, her eyes lighting up when she saw Cole. "Cole Brennan, you have not been in here in 2 weeks. I thought maybe you had forgotten about my cooking." "Never, Mrs. Patterson. Been out on the range, helping the Johnsons with their roundup." He gestured to Charlotte. "This is Miss Charlotte Hayes. She's traveling through and could use your best meal." "Mrs." Patterson's expression warmed immediately. "Any friend of Cole's is welcome here. I will bring you both the steak dinner with all the fixings. You look half starved, dear." When she bustled away, Charlotte leaned forward. "Does everyone in this town know you?" "Small town. Hard not to know everyone." Cole poured water from the pitcher on the table into 2 glasses. "I have been here about 5 years now. Came out from Texas looking for work and a fresh start." "What made you leave Texas?" He was quiet for a moment, turning the glass in his hands. "The war left a lot of scars, even for those of us too young to fight in it. Lost my parents to fever, lost the family ranch to debt. Figured I could either stay and drown in memories or head west and build something new." Charlotte recognized the pain in his voice, the same pain she carried. "I understand." My father and I ran a bookshop in St. Louis. After my mother died when I was 16, it was just the two of us. Then he got sick last spring, and by June, he was gone. The shop debts took everything. My aunt in Tucson is my only living relative. That is a hard road. Cole's eyes met hers with genuine sympathy. But you are still traveling, still moving forward. That takes courage. Or desperation. Charlotte managed a small smile. Sometimes I'm not sure which. Mrs. Patterson arrived with their meals, and for a few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. The steak was tender, the potatoes perfectly seasoned, and Charlotte felt strength seeping back into her body with each bite. She watched Cole eat with the efficiency of a man used to hard work and uncertain meal times, but his manners were good and he made sure her water glass stayed full. "So what do you do here in Silver Creek?" Charlotte asked, cutting another piece of steak. "I work for the Double R Ranch, about 10 miles north of town. Mostly cattle work, some horse training. The owner, Ruth Randall, she's a widow who has been running the place herself for 8 years. Sharp as a tack and tougher than most of the men who work for her, Arson." He paused. "She is also the one who taught me that women are just as capable as men when given half a chance." "You sound like you admire her." "I do. She took a chance on me when I showed up with nothing but a worn-out horse and a letter of reference from a ranch that no longer existed. Gave me work, taught me everything I know about running a successful operation." He met Charlotte's eyes. "Taught me to judge people by their character, not their circumstances." Charlotte felt warmth spread through her chest. "Is that why you helped me at the hotel?" "Partly. Also because Herbert is a pompous fool who needs taking down a peg now and then." Cole's expression turned serious. "But mostly because you looked like someone at the end of their rope, and I have been there. I know what it feels like to have doors closed in your face when you're just trying to survive." "Well, I am grateful you were there." Charlotte set down her fork, her plate nearly clean. "I do not know what I would have done otherwise. Probably slept in the livery stable." "Over my dead body." Cole said it lightly, but there was steel underneath. "No one should have to sleep in a stable when there are empty rooms available." They talked as the restaurant emptied around them about books and horses, about the differences between Missouri and Arizona, about the small details of their lives that made them real to each other. Charlotte found herself laughing at Cole's stories about ranch mishaps, and she watched his face light up when she described her favorite books and the customers who used to visit the shop. By the time they stepped back out into the night air, the sky was thick with stars, more stars than Charlotte had ever seen in the city. She stopped on the boardwalk, staring up in wonder. "Beautiful, is it not?" Cole stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. "Took me months to get used to it. Sometimes I still come out at night just to look." "It makes you feel small," Charlotte whispered, "but in a good way, like your problems are not the only things in the universe." "Exactly." He turned to look at her, and in the lamplight spilling from the restaurant windows, his eyes were soft. "Charlotte, I know you are just passing through, but while you are here, if you need anything, you come find me. The Double R is easy to reach. Just follow the North Road." "Why are you being so kind to me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "You do not even know me." Cole was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was low and honest. "Because the moment I saw you standing in that lobby, tired and scared but refusing to back down, something in my chest just woke up. I have spent 5 years building a life here, and it has been a good life, but it has also been a lonely one. Then you walked in, and suddenly I could not walk away." Charlotte's breath caught. "Cole, I am not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know you have plans, a life waiting in Tucson, but I also know that sometimes the universe puts people in your path at exactly the right moment, and you had better pay attention." He smiled, a little rueful. "Even if that moment is short." Charlotte felt something shift inside her, something that had been locked down since her father's death. "I am glad the universe put you in my path, Cole Brennan." They walked back to the hotel slowly, neither of them eager to end the evening. Herbert had been replaced by a night clerk who barely glanced up as they entered. At the foot of the stairs, Cole handed Charlotte her room key. "Get some rest," he said. "I will come by tomorrow morning, see if the sheriff has found you a safe way to Tucson." Charlotte clutched the key, suddenly not wanting him to leave. "Will you be in town tomorrow?" "I will make sure I am." He reached out and squeezed her hand gently, his calloused fingers warm against hers. "Sleep well, Charlotte." She watched him walk out into the night, then climbed the stairs to her room feeling more confused and alive than she had in months. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of the town settling down for the night, and thought about blue eyes and a quiet voice, and the way her name sounded when he said it. The next morning, Charlotte woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sounds of Silver Creek coming to life. She dressed carefully, choosing her green traveling dress, and went downstairs to find Cole already waiting in the lobby, looking freshly shaved and wearing a clean shirt. "Good morning." He smiled, and Charlotte felt her heart do something complicated. "I thought we could get breakfast, and then I need to talk to you about something." They ate at a small cafe, and Charlotte could feel Cole's nervous energy. Finally, over coffee, he set down his cup and met her eyes. "The sheriff says the stage to Tucson does not run again until next week. Apparently there was trouble on the route, and they are reorganizing." He paused. "But that is not what I wanted to talk to you about." "What is it?" "I talked to Ruth last night, told her about you. She is looking for someone to help with the books at the ranch, organize her records and correspondence. She has let it pile up for years, and it is becoming a problem." He leaned forward. "It would be a job, Charlotte, real work with pay and a place to stay, not charity." Charlotte's mind raced. "Cole, I cannot just abandon my plans. My aunt is expecting me." "Send her a telegram, tell her you found work. Does she need you urgently, or were you going there because you had nowhere else to go?" The question hit hard because Charlotte knew the answer. Her aunt had offered refuge out of duty, not love. They barely knew each other. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will at least come see the ranch, meet Ruth. Give yourself another option before you commit to a life that might not be what you really want." His eyes were intense, pleading. "I know it is crazy. I know we just met. But something tells me you're supposed to be here, at least for a while longer." Charlotte thought about Tucson, about living on her aunt's charity, about the vague promises of maybe finding work in a city where she knew no one. Then she thought about Cole, about the way he made her feel seen and valued, about the possibility of building something for herself. "I will come see the ranch," she said, "but I make no promises beyond that." Cole's smile could have lit the whole territory. "That is all I'm asking." They rode out to the Double R in a wagon borrowed from the livery, and Charlotte watched the landscape change from desert scrub to rolling grassland dotted with cattle. The ranch house was a sprawling adobe structure with a wide porch and gardens that spoke of care and attention. A woman emerged as they approached, tall and weathered, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that missed nothing. "You must be Charlotte Hayes." Ruth Randall extended a work-roughened hand. "Cole tells me you know your way around books and numbers." "I do, ma'am. My father and I ran a bookshop for 7 years." "Then you are probably overqualified for the mess I have waiting." Ruth gestured them inside. "Oh, come on, I will show you what I'm dealing with." The ranch office was chaos, papers stacked everywhere, ledgers falling apart, correspondence shoved into boxes. Charlotte felt her fingers itch to organize it, to bring order to the disorder. "I know it is bad," Ruth said. "I am good with cattle and horses, but this paperwork defeats me every time. I need someone who can make sense of it, get me organized so I can actually make informed decisions about the business." Charlotte walked around the room, picking up papers, seeing the bones of a successful operation buried under the clutter. "How long would you need me?" "Honestly, a few months at least to get everything sorted and set up a proper system. I can pay $40 a month plus room and board." Ruth crossed her arms. "And before you ask, yes, it is the same wage I would pay a man for this work." Charlotte looked at Cole, who was watching her with barely contained hope, then back at the office. She thought about her empty life waiting in Tucson, and she thought about the way her heart had felt lighter since meeting Cole Brennan. "I will do it," she said, "but I want to send a telegram to my aunt first, let her know my plans have changed." Ruth smiled, a genuine warmth transforming her stern face. "Smart woman. Cole, take her back to town to send that telegram, then bring her back with whatever belongings she needs. Charlotte, you can stay in the guest house. It is small but comfortable, and you will have your privacy." The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and discovery. Charlotte threw herself into organizing the ranch records, creating systems that made sense, and corresponding with buyers and suppliers. She found she had a talent for business that had been wasted in the bookshop, and Ruth came to rely on her advice. But more than the work, there was Cole. He found reasons to be near the main house, to bring her coffee while she worked, to ride with her in the evenings when the heat broke. They talked about everything and nothing, and Charlotte felt herself opening up in ways she had not thought possible. One evening, about a month after she arrived, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Cole took her hand. "I know I am supposed to be patient," he said quietly. "I know you are still figuring things out, but Charlotte, I have to tell you that every day I spend with you, I fall a little harder. You are smart and funny and kind, and you make me want to be better than I am." Charlotte turned to face him, her heart pounding. "Cole, I am scared. I have lost so much already. What if I let myself love you and then lose you too?" "You might." He cupped her face gently. "That is the risk we all take. But what if you do not lose me? What if we have 50 years together? Are you willing to miss that because you are afraid?" She thought about her parents, about the love they had shared before her mother's death, about how her father had always said that the years with her mother had been worth all the pain that came after. "No," she whispered, "I am not willing to miss it." Cole kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Charlotte felt like she was finally home after a long journey. When they broke apart, he was smiling. "So you will stay? Not just for the work, but for this, for us?" "I will stay." Charlotte kissed him again. "For as long as you will have me." "That would be forever then." Cole pulled her close, and they sat together watching the stars come out, making plans and promises in the cooling desert air. The weeks turned into months, and Charlotte's temporary position became permanent. She proved invaluable to Ruth, who began to teach her about ranch management beyond just the paperwork. Cole courted her properly, with flowers picked from the desert and long rides through the countryside, with dances in town and quiet evenings reading together. In October, when the heat finally broke and the air turned crisp, Cole took Charlotte to a spot on the ranch where a small creek ran through a grove of cottonwood trees. He had set up a picnic, complete with food from Mrs. Patterson's restaurant, and as they sat together watching the water flow past, he pulled a small box from his pocket. "Charlotte Hayes, I know I'm just a cowboy with more dreams than dollars, but I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Charlotte felt tears streaming down her face, but they were happy tears, joyful tears. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at once. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly, like everything else about them. They were married in November in the small church in Silver Creek, with Ruth standing as Charlotte's witness and Sheriff Whitaker standing for Cole. Half the town turned out, including Herbert from the hotel, who had the grace to look embarrassed as he congratulated the bride. They moved into a small house on the ranch property that Ruth helped them fix up, and Charlotte continued her work managing the books while Cole managed the cattle operations. They made a good team, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses, building a life together that was richer than either of them had imagined. In the spring of 1879, Charlotte discovered she was pregnant. Cole was ecstatic, already planning how he would teach their child to ride and rope. Though Charlotte insisted on reading lessons first, they argued playfully about names, and painted the small second bedroom in cheerful yellow. One evening in late May, as Charlotte sat at the ranch house going over supply orders, Ruth came in with a serious expression. "I need to talk to you and Cole about something," the older woman said. "Come to dinner tonight, both of you." They arrived to find Ruth had cooked a full meal, and over dessert she laid out papers on the table. "I am getting older," she said bluntly, "and I have no children to leave this ranch to. You two have become like family to me this past year. I want to make you partners in the Double R with the understanding that when I die, it becomes entirely yours." Charlotte and Cole looked at each other in shock. "Ruth, we cannot ask you to do that," Cole said. "You're not asking. I am offering." Ruth's eyes were fierce. "This ranch needs young blood, people who will care for it and build it into something even better. You have already done that, both of you. This just makes it official." After much discussion and some tears, they agreed. The papers were drawn up in town, and by June, Charlotte and Cole were part owners of the Double R Ranch. Charlotte threw herself into expansion plans, using the business skills she had developed to negotiate better prices and find new markets. Cole worked with Ruth to improve their breeding stock and water management. In September, Charlotte gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named Samuel, after Cole's father. Cole cried when he held his son for the first time, and Charlotte watched her strong cowboy husband become gentle as a lamb with the tiny infant. "He has your eyes," Cole whispered, tracing the baby's face with one finger. "And your stubborn chin," Charlotte replied, exhausted but happy. Samuel was followed 2 years later by a daughter named Rose, who had Charlotte's dark hair and Cole's adventurous spirit. Ruth doted on both children, and they grew up calling her Grandma Ruth, which made the older woman's eyes suspiciously bright. The years passed with the rhythm of ranch life, busy and full and occasionally challenging. There were droughts and market fluctuations, sick cattle and broken fences, but through it all, Charlotte and Cole faced everything together. Their love deepened with time, growing from that first spark into something solid and enduring. In 1885, Ruth passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 72. She had lived to see the ranch flourish under Charlotte and Cole's management, to see Samuel start school and Rose learn to ride. At the funeral, half the territory turned out to pay respects to the woman who had been a pioneer in every sense of the word. "She gave us everything," Cole said that night, holding Charlotte as they sat on their porch. "A home, a future, a chance to build something lasting." "She gave us each other," Charlotte replied. "That night at the hotel, if you had not stepped in, I would have gone to Tucson. We never would have met." Cole kissed her temple. "Then I guess I owe Herbert a thank you for being such a stubborn fool." They laughed together, and Charlotte marveled at how far they had come from that dusty evening 7 years ago when a tired woman and a kind cowboy had found each other at exactly the right moment. By 1890, the Double R had grown into one of the most successful ranches in the territory. Samuel was 11 and already helping with the cattle, while 8-year-old Rose had a gift with horses that amazed everyone. Charlotte had expanded their operations to include horse breeding, and Cole had become known throughout Arizona for his skill in training working animals. They added on to the house, creating space for the children and for the hands who worked for them. Charlotte insisted on fair wages and good conditions, remembering her father's belief that people did their best work when they were treated with respect. The Double R became known as a good place to work, and they never lacked for skilled help. In the spring of 1892, Charlotte discovered she was pregnant again. She was 37 now, and the pregnancy was harder than the others had been. But in December, she delivered twin boys, healthy and loud. They named them Thomas and James, and Samuel and Rose were thrilled to have baby brothers. "Our family is complete now," Charlotte said one evening, watching Cole cradle both twins at once while the older children argued playfully about whose turn it was to help with feeding. "More than complete," Cole agreed. "It is perfect." The children grew up strong and capable, learning the ranch business from the ground up. Samuel showed Charlotte's head for numbers and planning, while Rose had Cole's intuition with animals. The twins were still young, but already showed signs of being natural horsemen. As Arizona moved towards statehood, Charlotte became involved in local politics, advocating for education and women's rights. She never forgot the lessons she had learned about how society treated women alone, and she used her influence and the ranch's success to push for changes. Cole supported her fully, often joking that he had married a woman who could run a ranch, raise 4 children, and still find time to reorganize the territory. In 1896, on their 18th wedding anniversary, Cole took Charlotte back to Silver Creek. They walked down the main street, which had grown and modernized over the years, and stopped in front of the Silver Creek Grand Hotel. "Remember this place?" Cole asked, his arm around her waist. "How could I forget?" Charlotte leaned into him. "This is where my real life began." They went inside, and Charlotte was amused to see that Herbert still worked behind the desk, though his mustache was gray now and his shoulders stooped. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan," he said, his tone respectful. He had learned his lesson years ago about judging people. "Wonderful to see you." "We would like a room, Herbert," Cole said, "the best one you have." Of course. Herbert prepared the key. "Room 7, just like old times." They climbed the stairs together, and Charlotte laughed as Cole swept her into his arms and carried her over the threshold like he had on their wedding night. "Still romantic after all these years," she murmured, kissing his neck. "Always," Cole replied, setting her down gently. "You brought romance into my life, Charlotte. Before you, I was just going through the motions. You made everything matter." They made love that night in the little room where their story had truly begun. And afterward they lay tangled together, talking about their children and the ranch and all the years still ahead of them. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked suddenly. "Staying here instead of going to Tucson, building the life you had planned?" Charlotte propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at his dear, familiar face. "Not for a single second. That life was never really mine. It was just what I thought I was supposed to do. This life, the one we built together, this is the life I was meant to have." "I love you," Cole said simply. "I have loved you since the moment I saw you refuse to be intimidated by a pompous hotel clerk. And I have loved you since you stepped up and claimed I was with you without asking for anything in return." Charlotte kissed him softly. "You gave me everything I needed when I had nothing. You gave me hope and a future and a love I did not think existed outside of books." They fell asleep in each other's arms, and when they woke to the Arizona sunrise, they dressed and went downstairs to breakfast, ready to return to their ranch and their children and the life they had built together. The years continued their steady march. Samuel grew up and married a school teacher from Tucson, bringing her to the ranch where they built their own house and began raising a family. Rose shocked everyone by going to college in California, but she returned with a degree in veterinary medicine and became the first female veterinarian in the territory, working primarily with the ranch's horses. The twins, Thomas and James, proved to be natural businessmen, expanding the Double R's operations into new territories. Cole and Charlotte watched their children flourish with pride and joy, knowing that they had created not just a successful ranch, but a legacy of hard work, integrity, and love. They taught their children and grandchildren the story of how they met, how a moment of kindness had changed everything, how love could grow from the smallest seed into something that sustained generations. In 1910, on a warm evening in June, Cole and Charlotte sat on their porch watching the sunset, as they had done thousands of times before. Their hair was gray now, their hands marked by decades of work, but their love was as strong as ever. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" Charlotte asked, holding Cole's weathered hand. "About the universe putting people in your path at the right moment?" "I do." Cole smiled. "And I was right, was I not?" "You were absolutely right." Charlotte leaned her head on his shoulder. "That moment in the hotel, when you stepped in and said I was with you, that was the moment my whole life changed. You were not just giving me a room, Cole. You were giving me a future." "We gave each other a future," Cole corrected gently. I was sleepwalking through life until you arrived. You woke me up, made me want more than just getting by. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their grandchildren play in the yard, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. Samuel was checking the horses in the near pasture. Rose was in her clinic treating a mare with a strained leg, and the twins were going over shipping schedules in the office. We did good, Cole said softly. With the ranch, with the children, with everything. We did better than good. Charlotte turned to kiss him. We built something beautiful. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Cole pulled Charlotte closer, and she felt the same flutter in her heart that she had felt on that first evening 32 years ago. Time had changed many things, but it had not changed the fundamental truth of their love, the way they completed each other, the way they had built a life together from nothing but hope and determination. Their story had started with a refused hotel room and a cowboy's quiet declaration, but it had grown into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. It was a story of love and partnership, of building a legacy together, of proving that sometimes the universe does put the right people in your path at exactly the right moment. And as they sat together under the Arizona stars, surrounded by the family and the life they had created, Cole and Charlotte knew that every challenge they had faced, every obstacle they had overcome, had been worth it. Their love had started in a dusty hotel lobby in 1878, but it would endure for the rest of their days and beyond, in the children and grandchildren who carried their legacy forward, in the ranch that bore witness to their partnership, in the memory of a moment when a stranger had stepped forward and changed everything with 4 simple words. She's with me now. Those words had meant protection and safety in that first moment, but over the years they had come to mean so much more. They meant partnership and equality, love and commitment, the promise that no matter what came, they would face it together. They meant that Charlotte had found her home, not in a place but in a person, and that Cole had found his purpose in loving and supporting the remarkable woman who had walked into his life when he least expected it. As the moon rose over the Double R Ranch, Cole and Charlotte remained on their porch, hands intertwined, hearts beating in rhythm, living proof that true love could grow from the smallest act of kindness and endure through all the years that followed. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their legacy secure. They had built a life together that was rich with love, full of purpose, and absolutely perfect in every way that mattered.